G'day everybody, this is Dr. Ken here, and welcome to another video in my emotional and mental health biohacking series. Today we're going to touch on one of the models that I've developed around my anger fear model, which is coming very soon, and it underlies the motivating factors for fear, which itself underlies the motivating factors for anger. So in previous blogs, I've talked about anger management more accurately should be described as fear management. And I'll get into that in a later blog, but today I want to talk about something that motivates that fear, and it's called doubt. When we have doubt, we don't know what to do and we get confused. But what underlies that? Well, that's the guilt and the shame pendulum. And that often underlies a lot of our reactions to stress, to a sense of a threat upon our well-being and safety. And there is a very easier, well, not easy for everybody, it's simple, to manage that, to more effectively minimize the negative consequences and outputs of a threat. So this guilt and shame model is fundamental. It drills right down to the very bare essentials of what motivates us to develop our morals, ethics, and principles. And they in turn form our behaviors and our attitudes and our reactions to things. First off, let's talk about reactions. While I'm making the point here, a reaction is not a response. Okay, there's a Google Scholar article somewhere out there that I stumbled across when I was in an undergrad degree many years ago that the researcher determined the difference between a reaction and a response was 0.3 of a second, where a response was that 0.3 of a second time to think about how you will react or respond, how you will behave around a particular event. A reaction isn't that 0.3 of a second. It's more instinctive. It's like when you touch something very, very hot, like a flame or a hot plate, that you react by pulling your hand away. You don't respond. You don't go, I'll leave it there for 0.3 of a second and then think about moving it away. No, a response is when you've had rehearsal, you've had practice at the reaction, and you've had the chance to be able to construct a more appropriate and functional way for you to manage your behavior around that particular event. So let's get back to that anyway. So getting back to the guilt and the shame model. Guilt and shame work in synchronicity to each other. They feed each other and they feed off each other as well. Guilt is internal locus of control. It's when somebody perceives they feel something over doing harm. Like I talked about the evolution of morals, principles, and ethics. That happens when we're kids, when our parents say, no, don't talk about that. And we get the feedback from our society and our peer groups when we do something that brings harm on other people, whether it be their feelings or actual constructing an action that does harm to them. We feel guilty. So it's internally, we feel guilt about doing something wrong to other people. Shame is more of the external locus of control. I have shamed myself. I have brought shame upon my family from the outside. Other people's perspectives of my behavior has brought that into me, or what's of value to me. That's the difference between shame and guilt. The thing is, as I said, they're in this dichotomous relationship where they feed off each other. And like the pendulum in an old grandfather clock, they swing backwards and forwards. And the more energy you have to the guilt, the further it swings into shame. And it will swing higher and higher and higher. And if you don't break that cycle, you can break it, right? And it's because the person is trying to find an understanding, and they're trying to legitimate their answers, or their choices to react in a particular way, or to respond in a particular way. Sometimes we don't have a choice when we react. You know, you touch something hot, you don't have a choice. You will pull your hand back unless you're stupid or you've got no feelings in your hands. So we often try to legitimate our instinctive reaction to a threat. And that causes us to build the pendulum energy between guilt and shame. And that energy, we give that a name. We've actually called that energy something. We've called it doubt. D-O-U-B-T is the energy that drives guilt and shame. It builds it, it makes it big, it exaggerates it beyond what it truly was, which was a reaction to a perceived threat to our well-being, safety, or health. Okay? When we understand that, we know how the process of this pendulum works. But if doubt is just pure energy, and we've given it the title doubt, there must be another energy that we can use that removes the energy in that pendulum, that takes that swing away. What would that be? If we wanted to find equilibrium, in other words, if that pendulum was just to hang motionless, it would hang straight down. What would it take to remove that energy we call doubt? What would it take? Confidence. But what does confidence take? How do you build confidence? Yeah, there's some courses out there on confidence building, and my hat off to them. They're fantastic. But I don't know, and I've done a couple in my time, and this is why I'm delivering this to you, because I think that they miss a core ingredient that builds confidence. And that is no. Okay, so where does confidence come from? Right. Confidence comes from a very simple thing. No. Confidence comes from when we know ourselves, when we know our capabilities and our limitations, when we have an understanding of all that. And know builds on other things that help us with confidence. For example, knowledge. When we know about ourselves, we increase knowledge. We increase knowledge about the topic, about ourselves, about the issue that we are concerned with or passionate about, or that's affecting us. When we have that knowledge, we know ourselves. And there's another word now too, but it's very powerful. Ooh, I've already got this. When we acknowledge, right? Acknowledging means that we accept our limitations and we understand or have knowledge of our virtues and our capabilities. And we can even boil this one down a little bit further, actually. And this is not in the program, so no assessment on this one. But what about this word here? No. No comes from being able to say, no, I won't do that. No, I can't do that. And it's okay that I can't do that. No is when you know yourself, you know your limitations. You can say, no, thank you very much for that offer, but I know that I can't do that, or I know that I'm not ready for that yet. Yeah, yet. So, confidence comes from knowledge, knowing how to say no, knowing yourself and acknowledging your limitations and your capabilities. That feeds confidence. Okay, so now you've got an understanding of the pendulum so far, about how guilt and shame feed off each other and increase the consequences of not managing or understanding the processes that create and build guilt and shame. And we call that process doubt. That energy in the pendulum that is, and it's kryptonite, it's antithesis, it's enemy, if you will. is confidence. Because once we know about ourselves, we know about our limitations and our capabilities, we have no doubt that what we did at that time that we perceived the threat was the right thing to do. It was meaningful to us. It was sensible to us. It was functional to us. And when you have no doubt that you did the right thing at the time, you don't feel guilty. You don't need to be ashamed of the way you handled the situation. You know within yourself that your knowledge of your capabilities got you through, and you should never feel ashamed or guilty that other people simply don't understand that. That's where knowledge feeds confidence. That is the antithesis to doubt. Because when, like the grandfather clock, if you can remove that energy we've called doubt, then that just points to confidence all the time, right? When you've got that, you understand that doubt feeds fear. When you have a lot of doubt, you're afraid to move forward. You have so much doubt that you can't, you are immobilized. And this is the other side of the fight and flight. One feeds off the other. In fear, it is flight. And what we'll get onto in the next stage of the anger-fear model is that anger is the fight, fear is the flight, and one is used to control the other. But before it becomes problematic, if we understand the underlying motivators, the process, the principles in the process, then we will have the most meaningful management strategies that are relevant to our lives. This model won't answer all your questions. In fact, I hope it raises a few for you. You then go out and search for answers that are meaningful to you. They can't be delivered by a person like myself in a course or a program. By the way, and well, I'll just sideline Eddie for a moment. There is a course and a program in this. The anger fear model is a program I'll be delivering. Sign up for it. Don't forget, like and subscribe. This too, by the way, I'll take this little bite while I can. And when I'm put the advert out there for the course, for the program, sign up for it. Understand how this works a lot more, because I've just touched the tip of the iceberg in all this. What we'll do is we'll develop strategies that are relevant to you, that you can walk away with and start to change your life and the outcome of it. Getting back to the model, that the whole synchronicity and the interdependent relationships between guilt and shame, doubt, fear, and anger are all tied up in knowledge or lack of knowledge. When you don't know, you have doubt. All this works together. And when you understand it, you can break the cycle. This is not only a cycle that we've developed from early in life, and that every time we are faced with a threat that becomes a problem, we deal with it the same way, with this pendulum that just grows and grows and grows in energy, because we're never confident, or we're only confident in very specific areas. This was also an intergenerational model. This can be passed on to our children and our grandchildren, and for those lucky enough to live old enough, our great-grandchildren, and we will witness that. So if you want to break a cycle of a dysfunctional response to a threat that has been developing over years, if you want to break the cycle of anxiety and depression and other dysfunctional emotional reactions that have evolved because of that, then get to the bottom of it, drill down. This is what we're talking about. It's about how we have been trained to react and respond to guilt and shame. And we can stop that cycle through knowledge. Okay, so that's pretty much the guilt and the shame model in a nutshell. If you want to participate in the course. If you want to be sign up for the course that I'm going to be doing very soon in this whole process, you get a lot more detail. But that covers it in a nutshell. And of course, you're going to hopefully this generates more questions, and it will for you. And you'll want to explore yourself a little bit more. You'll explore how this applies to your situation here and now. And I don't have the answers all for you. It's not designed that way. It's designed to encourage you to explore your situation, your life. Whose life is it? Yours. Who's responsible for it? You are. So make these choices with more knowledge, with more wisdom. Learn about your capabilities and limitations, and say to yourself, hang on, I don't need to be angry, because I don't need to be afraid, because I don't need to have doubt, because I have confidence. And I have confidence because I've understood what motivates my guilt and shame. And I've understood the whole process. And that can make sense to how I can better develop behaviors or responses, not just reactions, but responses, so that I can articulate my words and my reactions and responses to a perceived threat, whether that be a minor threat, like a car backfiring for us veterans with PTSD, or whether it be a major threat like the bank foreclosing on my mortgage, or the boss shutting the business down and saying you got 2 weeks to find another job. These are all threats. These are all threats that raise our fear level. And if we can understand this process, then we can implement strategies that are meaningful to our lives. Now, it's good to do a course. It's good to have some guidance. And again, as I've said to you, I do offer some courses in this. Pretty soon, I'm going to be launching the whole anger fear model course, so that we can understand the process from start to finish, and how you can then develop your own relevant to you and meaningful and appropriate to you and each situation you're in. Develop the appropriate ways for you to manage all this, so it's managed to your advantage, to something that you can get out of it. You don't have to be afraid of it. Isn't that it's like a self-fulfilling cycle and prophecy. We need to be afraid. Wow. And some people are afraid of growth. Some people are afraid of moving forward because they've convinced themselves that this isn't the best thing I wanted, but I'm familiar with it, so I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to move it. I've learned how to manage and adapt this, even though it's costing me a lot of energy. This gives us an opportunity to understand, 1, how we got into this situation, and 2, how we can get ourselves out and move forward with confidence. Hopefully, that's increased your knowledge about yourself, your knowledge about the world around you, your capabilities and your limitations. And hopefully, we can then start biohacking our well-being in far more practical and functional ways. All right, well, that's it for today. Dr. Ken out. Don't forget, like and subscribe to the channel. Keep up to date with things I post. I know it's here and there. I'm a very busy bloke, but and put your comments in the links below, and stay tuned, guys. All the best. Catch you later.